I told you yesterday that even though it was Black Monday, that we would close in the green. And as you can see, we closed in the green yesterday. I also told you yesterday that we're going to get a market bounce, and the market bounce is here. You got the NASDAQ, you got the S&P up 3.05%. Look at the altcoins. Look at the top 100 altcoins. Andre here bought Fartcoin. He's up 50% on his investment. And that's because hot air actually rises. We are waiting for the NASDAQ to open. It's going to open in 1 minute. We will go back to that. Bitcoin over 80,000, ETH 1,580, Solana 111.60. So I reckon another 10% and both of these tokens get back to the pre-dump levels. But there's something going on here that we need to talk about, and that is there is a new kind of warfare that is happening. It's not about a trade war anymore. It's actually become a financial war between China and the United States. And I really want to talk about this war because China says that they will fight to the end if the US insists on tariffs. And the types of fights that China's talking about are not the same fights that we've been seeing around other countries where they're just going to increase more tariffs and limit trade. This fight is a way, way, way bigger fight, and we've got to talk about it because it could give us one more dip on the markets. So we're going to talk about this market rebound, and we're going to talk about this China-US trade war. If that sounds good to you, subscribe to the channel, obliterate the like button. I'm going to get the alpha going, guys. Does anybody else do this? Eat the top of the muffin only. Does anybody? It was just me because I mean I don't like the muffin. I just like the top of the muffin. Josh, when you eat your muffins, is that how you eat your muffins? You eat the whole muffin, eh? I don't know. Let me know in the chat if that's how you guys eat your muffins. That's how I eat my muffins. All right, as we can see, markets are pumping. Well, not pumping, but Bitcoin's above 80,000. ETH is 1,580. Solana back above 110. Bubbles look green. I did say yesterday, this should be no surprise, I told you that even though everyone was talking about a Black Monday, and when we were here, we were minus 3%, I did say to you, I think we're going to close green, and we actually did close green. And then I told you, I think we're going to get a run. Now, I'm going to say this today. I think we're going to get a massive run, but I think there could be one more smack, and that smack could be something around China. And the reason why I say that is because there's a new type of financial warfare that's being adopted by China, and we're going to talk about this. In the meantime, let's just look at what's happening here. So you had the S&P. Look at that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bounce off the trend that's been there since 2018. Look at that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bounce on the weekly trade. We'll talk about that bounce. And the truth is, if you're not buying here, then what are you waiting for? Like, this is a trend since 2020. The S&P touched the bottom since 2020. Now, look, you may not get the absolute bottom, but I do think that this is probably a good place to be buying. You got the altcoins, pretty green. You got the NASDAQ up, the futures up 3.21%. You got Bitcoin at 80,153. That's currently what's happening here. And the reason why all of this is happening, very simple, is remember I said to you in the beginning, they're going to lay down the law when it comes to tariffs. And now, after everyone's felt the full extent of what could happen, they're going to start negotiating. That's why I said last week that I think that we're nearing the end of the pain. And it turns out that when I said that, yes, we went slightly more down in the futures, but we closed at the same levels. Why? Because the worst was out when Trump actually announced the tariffs and when China retaliated. From that point on, it's all about negotiation. And what you can see now is that there's a campaign out there in Wall Street, which is basically saying to people, look, come and negotiate. A lot of other people are coming to negotiate. And those people that negotiate will get preferential treatment. The sooner you come to us, the sooner you'll get preferential treatment. It's very much like the IRS. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard a campaign by the IRS, right? When the IRS want people to come forward on their taxes, what they say is they say, hey, bro, we know you've been in crypto. But if you come to us and you tell us, and if you come to us soon before we come to you, we won't give you such a big penalty. Same thing exactly what's going on here. They're now coming out and saying, look, everyone's approaching us. They're approaching us with amazing deals.
Larry, I can tell you that there are 50, 60, maybe almost 70 countries now who have approached us. So it's going to be a busy April, May, maybe into June. And Japan is a very important military ally. They're a very important economic ally. And the U.S. has a lot of history with them. So I would expect that Japan's going to get priority just because they came forward very quickly.
You see, what are they doing here? Just like trying to understand the psyche of what they're doing. Over 70 countries have approached us, i.e. mass mentality. Everyone is coming forward. Don't be left out. Then the next part of the negotiation, and this is all media trading. These guys know exactly every word that comes out of their mouth. They know exactly what they're talking about. Then he says, look, come to us. Come sooner. By the way, look at Japan. Japan came to us and, we love Japan and we respect Japan and we want everything to work. It's all a massive campaign and that's what's pretty much happening now. Trump's narrative is don't just come with reducing the tariffs. I want more. And he's basically saying, look, everyone's offering us more stuff. Trump says that other countries are now offering things that we would never have even thought of asking for. In other words, what he's saying is come to the negotiating table quickly. When you arrive at the negotiating table, bring more than just tariffs. And he actually said something about the EU, and he kind of said about the EU, he said, look, it's not enough for you guys just to reduce the tariffs. You've actually got to do a whole lot more. Remove all the tariffs. Remove all the trade barriers. Because remember, sometimes they artificially don't accept US stuff. Like, we don't like US beef. Why? It doesn't meet standard 1967 of this act in blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's not about that. It's about removing all the trade barriers, committing to buying US goods, and also committing to invest in the United States. That is what he wants to do. Taiwan has accepted. As we mentioned, Japan has pretty much accepted, and they're sending a delegation to the United States specifically to negotiate right now. And what Besson says is, look, if Japan came first, and therefore Japan will get priority now. 70 countries have approached us. It's this whole big narrative. What we're also seeing is that if you do come forward first, you get your markets will actually recover. So you see, like, the Japanese markets actually had a massive recovery today. Let me actually show you. Let's quickly go to today. That's the weekly. Let me show you there we go. So you have here. See, Japan recovered from this morning about 10%. Why? Because they came forward. That's a marketing. That's all marketing. If you come forward, your stock market will recover. Your people won't take the pain. You will get preferential treatment. That is the campaign that Trump and everyone's on. Netanyahu also went to Washington and he spoke about the tariffs.
I can tell you that I said to the president a very simple thing. We will eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. We intend to do it very quickly. We think it's the right thing to do. So Netanyahu also saying, not only are we going to reduce tariffs, but we're actually going to eliminate the trade deficit with the United States. So that is the big narrative. And everyone, or a lot of countries are actually coming forward with a big narrative. The only problem is that the one that matters, the big one, right, is China. And China is not sitting back here. They're saying China's Commerce Ministry releases a statement saying that they will fight till the end if on US tariffs, and they will do whatever is necessary to actually protect themselves. So then they're the ones that this whole war is actually between China and the US. All the others are collateral damage. But this is a war between China and the US, and that's because the US is China's biggest trading partner. They're the company that buys the most out of China. And so China is not only fighting back with the tariffs by saying, hey, we'll also implement an extra 34% tariffs on you, but they're coming back with a whole lot of other things like major tariffs on US agricultural goods, a ban on US poultry imports, suspension of fentanyl-related cooperation. So they are deploying a whole lot of different measures to fight this war. And now Trump is fighting back on China fighting back. So Trump put a 34 increase tariff on China. They put a 34 increase tariff back on the US. And Trump says, if they don't remove it by the 8th, which is today, then he's going to put an extra 50% on China. And there is a press conference happening today at 3 p.m. And people are going to talk about the fact that this new China tariff will actually be brought up. Be careful at 3 p.m. EST time today, because at 3 p.m. EST time today, the markets could get another smack because of this, this war between China and the US. But this isn't the war that's worrying me. This is a normal tariff and trade war. And it's almost like, if we're in a boxing ring and we're both wearing boxing gloves and I hit you and you hit me, that's fair. Problem is that if we're in a boxing ring and then you take off your gloves and you're wearing knuckle dusters or whatever they call them, and you start kicking, you're playing with different rules, right? And that's exactly what China has opted to do. China has started a new type of warfare, and I want to show you this warfare. Remember that we said that Trump's objective for doing all of this was actually to get interest rates down. And the way to get interest rates down was to scare markets so much that they go out of risk and they go into US treasuries. And by doing that, they're going to drop the interest rates. And as they drop the interest rates, they will put pressure on the Fed to decrease the rates, right? And it was working perfectly until yesterday. And then yesterday, at the peak of the plan actually working, look what happened. Just have a look at that. You had the bond markets jump. In fact, I read somewhere, and I think I might even have that over here. Yeah, it's from Jim Bianco. He said, the 10-year yield was down 12.5 bips, blah, blah, blah. It finished the day up 19 bips from Friday's close at 4.18. There's only been 3 instances ever that this has actually happened. In January 23rd, 2008, the housing collapse. November 9th, 2016, when Trump won the election. And April 7th, which was yesterday. So there was a massive move in the bond market. So it's almost like Trump was working to a plan, and then someone destroyed the plan for him. And that someone that destroyed the plan for him was actually China. And the reason why what China actually did here was they started financial warfare. You may remember that China is the biggest or the second biggest, now the second biggest holder of US debt. China holds or held $750 billion worth of US treasuries. Where did they get the treasuries from? Very simple. When the US bought stuff from China, the US paid in dollars. Instead of selling those dollars, China held onto those dollars and deposited it into US treasury bills to earn the interest so that they could have a financial weapon, right? This financial weapon, they're starting to use now. Now, what is the financial weapon? Trump is trying to get interest rates down, right? And they're doing this to get interest rates down. You've got to make bonds more scarce, right? So what did China do? China start dumping. And yesterday, they dumped $50 billion worth of US treasuries. Now, as soon as they dumped $50 billion of US treasuries, that basically made the supply in the market very, very, very big. And so they had to increase interest rates to get more people interested. It's financial warfare. They know Trump is trying to get this 10-year treasury yield down. And they're saying, you know what, we're not only going to fight back with tariffs, but we're actually just going to keep dumping your treasury bills. And that's going to flood the market with US treasury bills, make them undesirable, and force the interest rates up so that more people would want to be buying this. It's financial warfare, and it's causing havoc in the US. Because if you look at the probabilities that of rate cuts, these things keep changing because of what China's doing. And China's sending a big message to the US saying, look, we're not only going to fight back with tariffs here, we're going to fight back with everything that we got. And just remember, buddy, we are the second biggest holders of your debt. And Japan is, by the way, the other big holder of your debt. So just be careful, because if you make the wrong moves or if you upset us too much, we're going to start financial warfare. The good news, I suppose you could say, is that the Chinese can't sustain this for a long time. Like they've got $1 trillion or $750 billion before yesterday's selling. So they've probably got $700 billion left. They don't want to deplete all their armor very much. But that's not all that China's doing. On top of all of this, China is starting to weaken their currency. That's another thing that they did yesterday. So just look at this chart on the daily, right? China started to gradually weaken their currency against the dollar. This is a chart of the US dollar versus the Chinese yuan. And what you can see is that China literally started to devalue the US currency, as you can see over here, right? They started to devalue devalue the Chinese currency. Why do they do that? They do that so that even with the tariffs, the US imports the US dollar can buy more Chinese currency, and therefore imports become cheaper. So it's another message to the United States to say to the United States, listen, we're going to fight you with everything that we have. We're going to increase tariffs. We're going to ban your poultry. We're going to ban investment in US companies. We're going to start selling your T-bills, and we're going to destroy your strategy here. And we're actually going to do something crazy. We're going to weaken our currency. We're going to weaken our currency so that more Americans buy more of our product because they're getting more for each dollar. Now, this is a crazy move by by China, and I'll explain to you why. Because if people in China believe that their currency is going to get weakened, what are they going to do? They're going to run away from the Chinese currency. They're going to start buying things outside of China. They're going to start buying gold. The last couple of times, they also started buying Bitcoin. So 𝗕𝗬𝗕𝗏 actually tweeted about it. And he said in 2013 and in 2015, when they devalued this narrative around the currency, all of a sudden people went out and bought, landed up buying Bitcoin. It's very scary because when you devalue your currency and people inside your country believe that you're going to be devaluing your currency, there's a big risk that they may run out of your currency, right? Now, here's where it gets super, super, super interesting, right? So up until now, the Chinese yuan has been pegged to the dollar, but now they're starting to devalue it. It was at 720. Now it is at 733. They're devaluing it. Here's the problem. The problem is that if they do devalue the currency too quickly and people start running away from the currency, then something crazy happens. And I want to show you what happens, and I want to show you where China's taking a massive, massive, massive risk. But I think suffice to say that this is becoming a big war. This is becoming, could be a world war, but it's a financial war. Because thank you to Irene. The EU has warned that if you adopt, I mean, this is much more powerful than normal warfare, right? This is financial warfare. This is how you cripple someone's economy using financial warfare. And so the EU is kind of warning China and basically saying, look, just guys, be careful. Don't start a world war because of a tariff war here. And especially what you don't want to be doing is, if you look at Ray Dalio talks about the fall of empires. And there was a Dutch empire, and then there was the British empire, and the British empire collapsed, and then the US empire came in. And Ray Dalio has been talking about the fact that the next empire is Chinese, and they're going to replace the United States. Now, what you can see here in this chart is that you're now getting a world war. Now, generally, the fall of the British and the rise of the US usually happen in a time of war, or usually happen because a war is created, right? And so I think right now there's a war going on between the two superpowers. And it's a war that's using all mediums. So number one, we're using financial mediums. Number two, we're using tariffs. Number three, we're using this. Now, again, you may think, oh, this is like childish, but this is meme war, or what do you want, trolling wars? I do think it's really, really, really funny. And I'm going to play it, even though we may get a music strike. I actually think it's worth it, because I think, like, to watch the US factory workers all out of shape and listening to Chinese music while they sew socks and sweaters. I gotta laugh. I mean, it's great. It kind of says, look, let us do what we do and you do what you do, because we're specialists in what we do and you specialize in what you do. But I mean, it's real warfare. And I mean, if you think about the maths here, China only does 8% of its trade with the United States, but the US actually needs stuff from China. So just think about, like, one of the bluffs that China could do is just, okay, we're stopping exports to the United States. Now, look, it would obviously hurt their economy, but ultimately the US is actually reliant on China. So this is a real war amongst superpowers, and they're using whatever they have to actually fight this war. Now, remember I said to you that the one mistake that China can do is possibly to devalue their currency too much. And specifically, this is not something that you want to be doing when 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏 is around. And the reason why you don't want to be doing this when 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏 is around, because this man is seasoned in shorting currencies and collapsing currencies as a result of the short. So ask why. Well, you may have heard about the period where George Soros actually took down the Bank of England, right? And the way that George Soros took down the Bank of England is when he felt that the British pound was misvalued or overvalued, he shorted the British pound. And he shorted the British pound so much that the Bank of England couldn't fight the short. And eventually he made billions and billions and billions of dollars when that happened. Now ask yourself, who was working for him at the time? And if you do a little bit of homework, what you'll realize is that the one person that actually was working with him, 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏, Trump's pick to guard America's financial system as Treasury Secretary, once helped orchestrate a huge trade against the British pound, which some say broke the Bank of England. Now he'll be on the other side of the trade responsible for protecting the US dollar. You don't want to get into a currency war with 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏 because this guy worked with George Soros and he's taken down bigger people in the pig. As Slothman says, 𝗕𝗏𝗧𝗏 was born for this. Look, we don't want a war here. And I think that no one wants a war here. I did see a tweet earlier, and I wonder if I can just quote up. But here we go. Trump actually softened a little bit and he said, look, yeah, guys, we want to make a deal. We're just waiting for China to call us. We really want to make a deal with China. We're just waiting for their call. That's basically what's going on here. So all this stuff is signaling to say, hey, guys, let's get around the table. Because we both know we've got a lot to lose. China, I've showed you what you got to lose. Okay, great. You showed us how you're going to fight back. Now that we've all boxed and shown people how it's working, now we can say to China, basically, let's meet and let's sit around the table. And that is exactly why markets are actually rebounding. Because if you look at markets, the rebound of the S&P up, you can see 2.63%. Great day. Let's look at the bubbles here. Stock bubbles, everything. Look at the stocks. The stocks are all green. Josh, are all the stocks back now? Okay, you're still adding back some of them, but you can see the stocks are all green. Crypto is all green, and we're getting this recovery now. There are a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines and waiting to buy this market, and I hear you. Maybe it's not the bottom. You may be right. Maybe it's not the bottom. But what are you waiting for? The question is, if you're not deploying now into massive fear, I don't know if this is right, but let's just go in and look at the fear and greed index. Was it at 4? It was at 4 yesterday. Look, it was at 4. Like, very soon it's going to be that fucking meme that goes through the floor, right? It's going to be that meme. So, look, I don't know if it's the bottom, but I do know that there's probably more upside than downside here. And I mean, like, okay, yeah, maybe we break through this trend that we haven't broken through since 2018. It's possible. But I think if you're not deploying now into the market, I mean, just look at some of these prices. Like, I saw 𝗕𝗏𝗁𝗃 was at like $10 yesterday. You got Solana. Yesterday you had Solana at under $100. You've got Athena under 30 cents. I mean, if you're not deploying in this market, I don't know when you're going to be deploying. I think tomorrow what we'll do is, for those of you who still have dry powder, I don't have any more dry powder. I'm completely out. But what I'll do is I'll actually create a portfolio of what we should be buying in this market dip. And you don't have to buy it tomorrow, but this is probably my top 10 tokens that I'd be DCAing into now. And we'll take into account risk return. So obviously you can make a lot of return if you buy things like Fartcoin, like this guy over here. Andre, come here in your orange shirt and show everyone your orange shirt. And also tell them why you bought Fartcoin.
That was looking good.
So you're saying basically, you're the genius today.
Hello everyone.
So why did you buy Fartcoin of all coins?
So the chart was looking very, very good. So I know it's very risky, but I said the market is down bad anyway. So let me put some shackles into it and maybe something will come out.
Okay, so just tell me
it
if you think Andre is smart.
But keep in mind, I didn't buy only Fartcoin. I'm also putting money into stocks. So I have a barbell of like extremely.
Josh, have you ever heard of a portfolio like this? Fartcoin and stocks.
It works. You'll see.
I don't know. Anyway, listen. If you do want to trade tokens, I do remember we are running this competition with Bitunix where if you do sign up, it's over here. It's over here. Competition with Bitunix where if you do sign up, so with every day if you sign up, we choose one winner and one winner wins $5,000. You have to deposit like even $10. Just deposit money so we know you're a real person, not a bot. Because there's no KYC on this exchange. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. No matter where you live in the world, even if you live in North Korea. Apparently they don't have internet there. Can you explain something to me about North Korea? They say they don't have internet in their country, and then they got the best motherfucking hackers in the whole fucking world. These are the guys that took the money from Bybit. Bro, what, like, how do they?
Only the States.
I mean, honestly, how do they do it? What, like you got Lazarus there, which is like the worst hackers in the world. Explain it to me. I don't get it. Anyway, let's carry on. Maven says best show ever. I also say best show ever. Tomorrow will be better. Every day we're going to do a better show. Tomorrow I'm going to show you what to buy. Hopefully the market hasn't run to Valhalla before that. Okay, so let's choose a winner. Okay, the winner is this UID 497671184. If that's your user ID, you're going to get $5,000. Email giveaways@cryptobanter.com. If you want to sign up, they're a great exchange. No KYC. No KYC. And deposit 20%. Deposit and get a 20% rebate when you trade. Also, remember, okay, there are all the other exchanges over there. You can sign up on those exchanges as well. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Until then, trade well, my friends.